All right. Greetings, fellow grade 10s. It's Mr. Chacha again. Look, now what I want us to look here is basically I think this was just a June paper, 2022, I think from KZN, right? So I just want us to look at only this particular type of question where we deal with trig functions, right? Now, if you can check there, they say use the graph of f, which is equals to tan a tan of x, and the graph of g of x, which is equals to 2 cos x plus p, which the graph basically starts from our 0 degrees up until 360 degrees, right? So that's basically the range of that particular graph that we are given. Now let's see in terms of what do they require us to do them. Now the first question is, they want us to do it. They want us now to write down the value of a, which is basically this particular a, and also the value of p, which is going to be this particular p. So now, how are we then going to start here? Now, basically now, what can we do from here? Now, if you can look at ordinarily, this particular graph of our tan, right? If you can look at it carefully, you're going to see that this particular graph of ours, which is tan, now it is going to have an amplitude, or the A, which is going to what? The A of this particular graph is going to be equals to 2. Right, again, now this is going to be the A of that particular graph. And now if you can look at now the P of this one. Now, if you can look at ordinarily, the graph of course starts at what? It starts at your 1, right? So usually in this context, it starts at 1, it moves downward and upward, right? But now it consists of an amplitude of 2, right? So which means if it consists of an amplitude of 2, which means it's going to now start at 2 and have a minimum point of at -2, right? But now what can you see here is that now here you are having 1, and here if you can look at this point, this is -3, right? So which means basically what happened is this 1 changed, this 2, I mean, changed to 1, and this -2 changed to -3. So what happened, which means this particular graph was just shifted 1 unit downward, right? So which means the value of our P is going to be equal to -1, right? Hopefully this makes sense. Now let's look at our 7.2.1. For 7.2.1, what is it that we are going to do there? They say now they want us to write down the amplitude of the graph of G, right? The amplitude of the graph of G. Already I was discussing the amplitude. Remember the amplitude, it is this, right? It is going to be this too. So which means the value of our amplitude for the graph of this one, we are going to say now, look, our amplitude of the graph of G is going to what? Is going to be 2. And now for 7.2.2, they want us to now look at the range of the graph of F, right? Now, what is going to be the range of this particular graph of F? Now, in simple essence, basically, you know that the range, it is going to be the all possible Y values, right? All possible Y values. And now, if you can look at the graph of F, look at this one, right? So here, it just shows that this graph is continuing, right? This graph here is continuous, this graph here is continuous, and this graph here is continuous, right? So which means basically now, this is going to continue from downward, and this graph, this side is going to continue upward, right? So which means in simple essence, this graph is just going to be the graph of what? This is going to be Y, the element of real numbers, right? Out again. Or which means it's going to have all the possible real numbers. Or if not, one can also write this as Y. It is going to be the element of this graph is going to range from negative infinity up until positive infinity. Isn't it so? Then basically that is going to be that. Now for 7.2.3, now what is it that you are given here? They want us to find out what is the period of G, right? The period of F, I mean. And we know that every time for the period of F, remember for tan graph, the period for formula for tan graph is given by what? It is given by what is the period there? Let's see. You know that a period is going to be 180 degrees divided by what? Divide by 1 in this context. Why are we saying 1? Because look, next to the tan here, there is no number. But for example, if it was going to be tan of 2x, then you're going to divide by 2, right? So which means basically this is going to be 180, right? So to those who might not understand in terms of how do we look at period, basically now we are saying now the degrees it takes for this graph to complete one full cycle. And we know that for the graph of 10, right? We know that for the graph of 10, if this is our Cartesian plane, the graph of 10 completes a full period by having this particular curve, right? So which means if you can calculate the degrees from here, right? If you can calculate the degrees from here up until here, you'll realize that actually this is going to be 108 degrees, right? This is going to be that. Now, let's look at the last one now. And for the last one, they say use the graph to determine the number of solution for f of x and g of x in the interval x and 1/8, right? So they are saying up until here, this is it's going to be 150, right? This is 160, 170, 180. So which means up until here, right? Up until here, they want us to check in terms of where both of these graphs are touching, right? Now, if you can look at the point where both of the graph of f of x and g of x are touching, right? Because that's where f of x is equal to g of x, right? You are going to see that the graph is touching here and the graph is also touching here out here. So which means basically this particular graph is going to touch how many, is going to have how many solutions. And now this 7.3, this graph is going to be having how much? It's going to be having 2 solutions, right? Out here. So basically this is how we were expected to solve this question. Thank you very much.